Okay.
This movie did not rock.
It rolled.
On a scale of 1 to 10 is more of a Dwayne.
So, this movie was hilarious, by the way. Of course, I watched it with a bunch of friends, so that naturally we had a really good time kind of riffing on it, watching it. But the story, from what I can glean, starts out at this school. And at this school, they're doing like a thing where they draw a picture for like a time capsule. The school's gonna put a bunch of pictures in this time capsule, bury it for posterity. Well, one kid in the classroom, Lucinda, that was her name.
Sure.
She writes like a giant sequence of numbers on this piece of paper instead of a picture. And in the 50s, that's no good. In the 50s, you're supposed to be like everyone else. So she gets in trouble for having individuality. I don't know, this number sequence gets buried in the time capsule. Well, fast forward to 2009, and Nicolas Cage has come upon this sequence of numbers.
But, you know, at first it just looks like numbers. Nicolas Cage does some fine investigation to find out what this really is. For example, he's drinking, not well, because he pours it all over himself, and he sets his cup down. His whiskey ring draws a circle around, like separates certain numbers. So like it's separated 9 and 11. The first thing any American thinks of then is 9/11. He's like 9/11, and then this number, and it's like 2,700 or something. However many people died in that incident, and then he's like, "Oh, what a strange coincidence, Nicolas Cage." And then he starts looking at the other numbers, and it's like all these disasters and stuff. But essentially, as the movie goes on, there's a big disaster that happens that Nicolas Cage just barely avoids, and basically everyone starts to believe him. And then at the end of the list of these giant disasters, because they're almost towards the end then, is one that doesn't have a number. It just says,
which is short for, you're all gonna die.
Because apparently, in a number sequence, the thing that makes sense at the end is to write EE and not like a sideways 8, which is a number. So then they're like, whoa, it's the apocalypse. Nicolas Cage, save us, and also help us find Ben Franklin's penis. And he said, well, I only have time for one of those. So they're trying to find a way to stop the apocalypse. Spoiler warning, the end of the movie, it's not good.
And that's where the movie gets even stupider.
This movie is strange.
This is way too lowbrow even for us.
Watching this movie did strange things to me.
Well, for starters, if we're talking about bad writing, I gotta bring up Nicolas Cage's son. Not that, like, the acting was particularly bad. It wasn't awful. I mean, nowhere near as bad as some of the movies we've seen. But it's just, his kid, the character of Nicolas Cage's kid, is like one of those, you know, precocious, like 8-year-olds who does not talk like any child, even a smart or gifted one, has ever talked. Like, the kid talks like an adult, and it's really annoying. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that thing you've been looking at for the entire movie was not important at all.
What thing were you talking about? What was not important? Every time it was supposed to be like, oh, watch out for the sound people. They're shooting like light beams out of their face.
I forgot about that.
You forget about when he's just like, ah!
That was so great.
Like
oh, God,
Flashlight Man. My opinion, closing thought. If you were trying to decide if you wanted to watch this movie or not, I would see if there was a way for you to see just the plane crash scene. It's, I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes long. Best part of the movie. It's pretty well done. If you could see that scene by itself, you should do it. You should not watch this 2-hour film in its entirety unless you have a bunch of friends and it's kind of just a lampoon fest.
If we're going with Nicolas Cage movies that have good effects, again, Drive Angry, it was like our first review, and I loved Drive Angry to death, but I just could not get into this movie. It wasn't, you know, like a fun Nick Cage movie. Nick Cage gave a pretty subdued performance this time. He seemed not quite as sleepy as he was in The Wicker Man.
But pretty close.
But pretty close.
Hey, Jim, you know what?
What?
No.
I'm not allowed to like Nick Cage?
No. I'm saying, do you know what? Do you know?
I don't know.
Are you not knowing?
I'm not knowing.
No. Thank you to our special guest star, Ronald.
We're gonna set him free now.